Hello, everyone. This is Jonathan, and I'm here with Max, and we are getting started now with the webinar. Okay, so today we are going to give another webinar, and this one is going to be a 1 hour long, and it's essentially an introductory webinar about what is Konstru and why do we build Konstru and how does it work. So I'll give a brief introduction. So Max and I both used to work at a structural engineering firm called Tomasetti, where we both work at the R&D group, Core Studio. And about almost 6 years ago now, we started working on this internal product and eventually decided that this should become a standalone company, independent, and so you know, a good year ago we spun off this product called Konstru, and we're going to show you now what it is and what you can do with it. So so one of the, I guess, big problems that we have seen over and over in our industry when working on medium and large size projects as engineers as well as architects is that it takes more than one single piece of software to develop the product. And you know, our industry is not like, it's very difficult to bring information across between different programs. There is no real standard. I guess IFC is the closest thing to a standard, but it's not really fully implemented by all the different vendors. And so we, like I said, about 6 years ago, started building our own solution. And this has come a long way now. And it's now called Konstru. And yeah, it's been tested on many different projects over the years. And yeah, we'll give you the introduction of what you can do with it. So essentially, Konstru is a central data repository that is web-based for all of your BIM and analysis data. And it communicates between, so here you can just see the same model that we saw here. This is at Cornell Tech, the Weiss Manfredi building, and we could use Konstru in this case to bring it into any of these platforms and more. And so Konstru essentially connects 8 different platforms: SAP 2000, Revit, RAM, Structural System, Grasshopper, Excel, Etabs, Dynamo, and Tekla. And you can import and export information between all these different platforms into Konstru. And you can, whenever you do that, you can make certain decisions about how the data should be translated to and from the different platforms. So it's a web-based application, and we'll see that in a minute. It's securely hosted and encrypted, and so it's a central data repository where all the information that you bring across essentially lands in a kind of time-based database, and we'll see more about that too. So this allows you to actually track the history of your model as they progress over time. And then one, I think, really important feature is that you can control exactly what kind of information you export or import, which typical interoperability solutions do not offer. And also, we do work we have built and built even more of that, the ability to give full transparency before you make a change to your model. So every time that you're about to import something or that you're about to export something, it gives you a preview of what is about to change, and only if you're happy with that, then you commit, basically. So yeah, so a big thing is that instead of uploading and downloading an entire model every single time that you press save to Konstru or read from Konstru, instead of doing that, it just uploads the changes only, which is of course a lot more lightweight, but also it's really nice because over time you build up a change log. And so we basically learned this from being software developers and from working with software version control systems, and realizing that if you work in a large team on a software project, it's just really nice to see who made which change when, and being able to maybe undo changes or extract certain information and start kind of a separate model from an existing model, working on that. So all that kind of stuff we built into Konstru. So we're going to give a live demo in a second, where we'll go from Revit to Konstru to Etabs, and then back to Revit. And okay, this diagram looks fairly complicated, but so we'll start in the top left corner. We'll bring information into Konstru. Then in Konstru, we'll make some changes to the model, and we'll prepare it for structural analysis. And then we're going to bring that into Etabs, and we'll map information from the Konstru model into the Etabs model. And then we'll make some updates. And then we'll bring select information back into Konstru and back into Revit. Okay, time for the demo.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. So I will share my screen so we can get started. So my screen should be online right now. Yes, so I wanted to show you how it works when you first sign up on Konstru. So just if you get started, you can always create an account on konstru.com. You might have seen that, and then it takes you here to our web app. And in our web app, you can actually just sign up or log in if you already have an account. I'm going to log in because I have one. So I'm going to use our webinar account. And of course, in your case, you would just enter your credentials, and then you can click Authenticate. So in Konstru, you first land on a page that has your active models and shows your recent activity. And in here, you can already create a new model. And the model is basically a container. Understand it as a file, for example. So usually you would have a Revit file and you would upload it into one model. So this is kind of the one-to-one relation here. So I'm going to click Create New Model. I'm going to call it Revit Upload. And you can give it a description if you want to. Webinar upload, for example. And this is in my organization. This is the user I'm using, and I'm clicking Create now to create this new model. Now this new model has been created, and already takes me into that model. And as Jonathan already mentioned, we have a version control system that builds up versions. So the model now is empty, and I have to upload something to create the first version. So here it already points me to a video that explains me how to upload from Revit.
I think we've lost Max. Okay, so let's give him a second if he's coming back. Otherwise, I'll continue the demo.
Hello, sorry, I got interrupted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Had a connection loss. So what I wanted to tell you is, if you go in the menu and you go to Get Plugins, you will find all our plugins, and here you can download the plugins installer. And you will also see an overview about the applications we support. Please note that Dynamo is coming via the Dynamo Package Manager. It's not in the installer. So I'm going now back to the model, and we created this model, Revit Upload. And after installing Konstru in Revit, you will find it in the Konstru menu bar. And in here, I can just click Konstru, and upload this model here that I have in Revit. And I'm going to select the Revit Upload. So I'm going to check this one. And now, since the model that we have online in Konstru is empty, I only have one option. I can update Konstru. Now, I'm going to click Update Konstru with the recommended upload from Revit filters. We will explain filters and how they work throughout the whole process because they're quite complex, and so we will learn them throughout this upload process and also downloading into other applications. Also, please note, this question is quite often coming up. So we have also an option to upload analytical geometry from Revit instead of physical one. You can check this checkbox if you want to upload the analytical geometry. In my case, I'm just going to upload the physical one that we see in the model in the background. I'm going to select Update, and I have to describe the first version. There's already a suggestion here that we came up with, which is first upload, because there's nothing in your model. And if you want to, you can also upload selections. You just have to check this checkbox to upload selections. In my case, I also want to upload the entire model, so I'm going to click Update Konstru. Now, Konstru is going to prepare a preview for us about what is going to change. And therefore, it's reading the local model, and it's reading the model we have on the server, which is empty, and it tells us about the differences. So in this case, we have 312 elements that will be added to the model that we have online. We can explore those changes here, and we see a list with types like levels, 6 levels, 8 load patterns, then we have 30 grids and 38 walls, and so on. And if I agree with those changes, I can click Finish Update. If I don't want to apply those changes, I can always cancel at this point. Now, I like those changes, so I'm going to click Finish Update. And Konstru will now save those changes to the server. And this is done in a second, depending on your connection. And now once you uploaded it, you can jump online directly by just clicking View the Model. Now, this takes you to our web app. And in our web app, you will see the model now rendered directly. This is the first upload you did to your model. So this is also the first version of your model. So you can see here in this dropdown on the left-hand side, this is today's date, and we see first upload was the description I gave it. There's also an option in Konstru to go to the History tab, and in the History tab you see a timeline. This is very like Facebook. You just see a timeline and everything that happens to your model. So you can always, we will also show that, but you can also go back in time in Konstru, which is really powerful, especially if you work together, multiple people in one model, or this can help a lot. So once you upload the model, you see it online. This is basically the rendered extrusion of the entire model. You can also see, and this is sometimes quite helpful, you can see the wireframe of this model. I'm going to click this little cog here and click wireframe view. And now we can see this is the wireframe of the model. This is also what Konstru stores in the database, because we don't store meshes like other platforms do that. We store only centerline geometries and profile geometries. So we extrude on the fly, and this makes our models very lightweight. So this is actually the geometries we save. And here you see, of course, because I was modeling in Revit, and Revit is not necessarily the best platform to model very clean in. And you see what happened to my braces. My braces are not connected in those points where all the other members are connecting. So as you know, if you would want to use this model, for example, for analysis in Etabs, what we want to do today, we would struggle with this model, and we would have to go through manually and repair all those braces, which would probably take us quite a while. And this is something we experience a lot, because our users told us, well, this is a great product, but every time I go from Revit to Etabs, I have to clean up the model, because the Revit model is not at a state for analysis. And this is why we implemented a new tool that is called Repair. So I'm going to demonstrate this now as well. So I'm going to click to Repair. And on Repair, the first thing that happens is that we're analyzing the model that you see here, and we analyze it by connections. And here you see this is the standard analysis distance to nearest work point. Work points are points between grid and grid level intersections. And so we know that this means, this red point means that it's 0 millimeters from the closest grid to grid and level intersection. The yellow point means it's around here, so it's something like 200 millimeters, or yeah, around that, off this point. And this is something we can repair automatically in Konstru. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click Repair. And in Repair, we have various options. We can, this is very powerful, so you can actually repair your model by, you can say you can only repair columns, only beams, only braces. In our case, it might be interesting to only repair braces, actually. I'm going to select that. And then you can also filter it down by number of connections that they have in here, like how many members are meeting at one connection. And then you can also play with the distance to the closest work point. And what you can also do is just increase the size of this little point here, so we can see better what's going on. And also there's an option to repair the model by level. So what I'm going to show you today, to keep it short, is we have 4 different repair methods. We're going to talk about one now. This is the easiest one. This is the one that's snap nodes to closest work point. So this means that this member should snap to this point here. And the same for all of those that are not very clean here. So I'm going to select this option, and if I increase the tolerance, because now this is our repair mode is not within the tolerance, then I will see that this point here and this member will be modified. That's why it's highlighted in orange. We see some of them will be modified, not all. I think we have to increase also the elements we were repairing, so it finds all the connections. I have to check. And yeah, so now we can see that with this mode, it would repair all of those frames automatically. So we see those here. This will be repaired automatically. And now I'm going to select preview, and I'm going to get a preview of my model. And in this model here, what you can see in this corner, you see that this has been repaired. So all of those members are now together at one point. And now I'm going to click Save, and this will be saved as a new version in Konstru. So now you don't see much of a difference here in this model online, because actually, well, this was a very tiny change. But what we can explore now is we can explore the changes from the model that we had before to the model after. So what we said earlier, this is a version system where we store changes. So what you can see in this drop down right now is we have a first upload and we have a repaired first upload. I can also hop back to this history tab, and in the history tab I can see this is the latest version and there was a version before. So now I'm going to compare those two. And this is what Konstru is very powerful at, because we're doing like a version control on element basis. This means I'm going to select change, and this is comparing versus the first upload. And I have to go to the right version right now, and this doesn't seem to work in this. Sorry, 1 second. I think I'm on the wrong branch here. Just have to flip to the other application that we have.
I think actually when you saved it, because of your filter settings, I think no changes were saved.
Okay, well, we saw some there, but well, I will repair it again. This is the easiest way. We will just repair this model again, and I'm going to repair. And clicking repair, we see there's some connections that are not very clean. And we're going to run this repair mode again. And now we see there are more elements modified. I'm just doing the same thing again as we did earlier. And now we get a preview. And we see that, okay, so this seems to be something odd with our repair at the moment. Let me go back again.
What distance did you type for repair?
Yeah, I'm going to increase it. So
yeah, it needs to be more than way more than 300.
And now we're going to get a preview. And what we can see here now, this is what we wanted to see. This is the very repaired model. And now I can save this as a new version again. And this being saved now online in our web app. So, and what I wanted to do is wanted to compare this version against the first upload. And this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go to select in the Visualize tab. I'm going to select Changes, View by Changes. And now what I can see is this is going to compare the version that we have right now versus the version that we had before. And what you can see here is that all the braces are highlighted in orange. And I can select them, and you see also the difference of each of those elements. So you see here attribute changed, and we have geometry, points differ, and we see that afterwards the element changed 155 millimeters from start and end point. So, and we can go through those changes, but what we also see is that when we repaired our model, we saw many more changes. So in this case, I'm going to unfold the comparison settings, and the comparison settings are very powerful because they allow you to compare the versions against each other, but you can also skip certain attributes or even play with tolerances. So in our case, we already have a tolerance applied of 25 millimeters. If I set this down to 0, for example, just as an example, so we see this, we can see that the changes applied to our model are much more. And I can select one of those, for example, these beams, and it's going to tell me that this changed 1 millimeter at start and end point. So This is a very refined way how I can see all the changes in my model, and I'm going to increase it a bit again because maybe 1 millimeter changes are changes I don't want to see. Going back to 25, so we see the changes that are larger than 25 millimeters. And those are the elements that changed. What I can also do here, and this is very nice, is I can say I don't really care about geometry changes. So if I uncheck geometry changes, it shows me that nothing is different between the version we had before and the current latest version, because I ignore geometry changes. If I activate them again, I will see that those changes are highlighted in orange again. Now this model has been repaired, and if I flip back to the wireframe view, I can see this is how the model looks, and all the connections are fine. And now Jonathan can actually download this model into Etabs and use that. So I'm now going to hand back to Jonathan.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so so we did not show this. Max earlier today already invited me. So basically, if you want to invite other people to collaborate on a model with, you would simply go to the Models People tab, and then you can click on Invite a User, and then you can send an email to that person, and then based on what you want them to be able to do, you give them kind of different permissions. So if I want them to be able to also invite others, I would give them admin permissions. If I want them to only upload and download models, I would give them modeler permissions. And if I wanted them to only view or download a model but not make any changes, I could give them a viewer permission. And then the last permission is like they can't even download a model. They can only see a change report, which is something that I don't think we're going to get into today, but essentially you can, if you're interested in, you could basically also create a change report, and you could, exactly like Max showed, you could specify, what kind of changes you want the person to see. Like, do I want them to see all the elements that I deleted or not? And based on that, it basically creates kind of a color-coded view for the person that you want to share the change report with, and then they can go in and see that particular instance of the model. And they could also download a CSV file of all the changes as they are in that particular version. So anyway, so that's collaborators. So I'm already a collaborator, therefore I have access to this model right now. So I'm going to head into Etabs. Just open a blank file here, and under Tools, I can see the Konstru button. And once I press that, it shows exactly what we saw in Revit earlier. So essentially, here's my list of models that I have. Revit Upload is the one that we're working on right now. So I'm going to select this. And now I have two options. I could either download into Etabs or upload from Etabs. So of course I want to download into Etabs. And as Max said, there are different filters. So it's telling me what the default filter is. It's the kind of Konstru recommended download filter. I'm just going to keep that selected and press download. And it's giving me a preview of all the element types that are being, it's saying in green, everything that's green is being added. So of course I have an empty model, so nothing will be deleted from my model, but things are being added, like I'm adding levels and grids. Actually, I'm not adding grids because they're filtered out. I also filter out the load patterns, but I'm adding like braces and beams and columns. Okay, that looks good. So the next step is, based on the kind of materials and profile sections and area sections that areas that were present in the Revit model, I may not have all the right families loaded in my Etabs model. So, for example, there's a material coming from Revit that's called unknown. So I'm just going to tell it to create a new material with that name, and then whenever it can, it loads what is already present in my Etabs database, and it loads that section basically and maps it. So here you can see, even though the names are slightly different, it thinks it found the best possible match. So the same for areas. I'm just going to create new ones. And for the other profiles, it found the 18 by 40. It did not find the 10 by 60 because it's not part of my database here. That's okay. I'll just leave it as create new. And press OK. So So now it's giving me a warning here that says, there's a material called unknown. Make sure that you manipulate it if you want it to be part of the analysis. So, okay, got it. And here we are. So we have our model in sorry, I always have to learn again how to rotate. We have our model in Etabs. It looks exactly as we expected it to. So it's fully connected because Max applied the repair function. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I just want to modify a few of the sections. So I'm just going to come over here and select a couple of the columns, and I'm just going to make them much bigger so we can see that. So I'm going to assign a different section property, just make this something large, W30. Okay, so we have now W30s down here, and then we have some W18s. Okay, so with this, now that I've essentially made my changes in the model, I will go back and launch Konstru again, and select the same model that I'm working with. And now it's using the recommended upload filter that, again, we have kind of a default filter. So I'm using that to update the Konstru model in the database. And I'm just going to say modified 3 section properties. Okay. So it also gives me the option to upload analysis results. We're not going to run an analysis right now, but I can show you that in a minute, what that would look like. Okay, so here it's telling me that it's adding a lot of new elements, it modifies 3, and it's deleting a few as well. So why is that? So we can look at it by status instead of by type, and we can see that, for example, all the load patterns are being deleted as well as one level, and that's because it's also adding a new level. So when I open this model in Etabs, I already had a level at the kind of the 0 elevation, so therefore it's replacing the level that came from Revit with the one that comes from Etabs. If I don't like this, and also if I don't want to upload all the nodes and restraints and the load pattern changes, I will go and manipulate my default filter to not upload those changes. Because in the end, all I really want to upload are my 3 section changes. So I'm going to go to the filter settings, and I'm going to look at my Konstru filters. So there's a filter called recommended upload from Etabs, and I'm going to just make a copy of this filter from Etabs to Konstru, and I'm going to say no levels and analysis elements. Typing would be good. Okay. So I'm going to say create. If I had checked the box, make this the default filter, the next time that I would run Etabs, it would use that by default. So let me just go in, and so then I click on edit, and I can now exactly manipulate. Like, I don't want to upload levels. I also don't want to upload any of these kind of elements. So I think that's probably it. I don't think there were any point loads and area loads, but anyway, so that's now saved. So if I go back to Etabs now, and I reload my filters, and I select now this one, it's going to run the comparison again, and now it's telling me, okay, I must have not filtered out the load case, but anyway, you see how now the list has changed. So now it's only updating 3 columns, and it's no longer messing with my levels and all that. Okay, so this is what I want. So I'm going to press Finish Update, and this is usually pretty quick. You can already see there's a new version. So if I click on View Model, it basically opens a new browser window with that specific view. And it's going straight to the change view to show me what has changed in my model. Let me just, not sure why it's taking so long. Maybe I have too many windows open right now. So let me close the other windows and just refresh this window here. Okay, so now, yes, so now the history is modified 3 sections. Okay, good. So if I go to this view and I click on change, I can now see that 3 elements were added of type load case, and then 3 elements were updated of type column. And the load cases we don't visualize, so all you can see in the model are 3 big fat orange columns. So those are exactly the changes that I made, and if I select one of them, it would tell me under the green section here that one of the attributes of this element has changed, and it used to be a W18, now it's a W30. So so already this is, you know, as expected. Like, I think it's very good practice to just kind of review the upload and download log and see if the changes that are about to be uploaded or downloaded are as expected. Then make a change to the filter as needed, and then continue with the upload. So this is exactly what we expected. Okay, so now I have this model. I will give it back to Max, and he's going to download it into Revit so we can see the full, you know, the full loop of updating an existing Revit model.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I'm going to present my screen. So, and I also, of course, get notified about the change here in my web app, and I can see here is the latest version, and this is modified 3 sections, and Jonathan already showed you like all the changes that were in here. So what I can do now is going to download those changes into Revit. One thing that is important for you to know is also if you don't like any changes, let's say we're not happy with a change that happened at this point, we can always revert to an earlier state. So if I would want to skip this step and let's say the section sizes are not fine, I can click on the version before and click revert. This would actually reset the model to the state as it was before. So this can be very helpful. What I'm going to do now is I'm going back to Revit, and in Revit I'm going to run Konstru, and now it's loading my models. I'm going to select Revit Upload, and now I have 2 options here. I can either update Konstru or I can download to Revit, and that's what I'm going to do, and it's using the recommended filter. So we're going to see what's happening with that, because probably I have to filter out some things, because maybe I don't want the geometry changes of the repaired model, because either maybe I want them, then I can just download them, or I don't want them and I only want the section sizes to be changed. And that's what I'm going to do now. So we're building in Revit this difference report, and we see there have been 40 elements been modified, and I'm going to flip over to status and have a look at them. And then we see that a lot of beams, braces, and change their geometry. We also see some profile changes in columns. If I want to filter those out, and again, so you learn that, we are going to click on the filter button to filter out the geometry changes. So what I'm going to do here is creating a new filter. This is taking me automatically to my organization and the filters. And if I click new filter, I can create a filter from Konstru to Revit, for example. I'm going to call it no geometries. And I'm going to use the same as a description, and I'm going to copy our recommended filters. I'm going to click create, and now we have a new filter called no geometries, and I can also edit this one. And now I can see this what we already saw before, but in this case now we're not ignoring entire elements. The difference that we're going to do is that we're going to select only a certain attribute that we want to ignore, or basically a property of those elements. So in this case, from beams, I don't want to download geometry. And so you see that all the other options are still checked, so those will still be downloaded. Can also go to braces, and I'm going to say I don't want to download geometry, and the same for the columns. I don't want to download geometry. Maybe if floors changed, they didn't change, but you could also uncheck those. And you see also these little icons here. They represent the properties that you see here. So the black dot with an M means material, then we have profiles, then we have name, and then we have geometry. That's why this G is white now, which means it's not activated. This just gives you a quick overview. If all of them are collapsed, you can see easily what is being applied in this filter. So now I can save those changes, and this filter will be saved, so it has been updated successfully. And now I'm going back into Revit, and in Revit I will now have to click the reload filters button, and this reloads my filters, and now I see there's a new filter here called no geometries. Now if I select this filter, Konstru is going to run again the comparison against the two models, but this time with a slightly different setup. This time we're going to ignore the geometries that we are coming in from Konstru, and we're not going to apply them. So the only change that we actually are supposed to see are the profile section changes of the 3 columns that will now have a different profile section. Now while we're waiting a second, we also see some information about what you can do with Konstru. This is helpful. This is coming with a new release next week. So now in our review state, what we can see is 3 elements have been modified in orange. I'm going to unfold them, and I see there are 3 columns here and have a profile change. So now if I move this dialog a bit to the side and to see my 3D model in the background, and then click the question mark, it actually highlights those elements. Let me move this over here, so it's a bit easier. So now this highlights this element, and it shows me this was a W18 by 40, and it's going to change to a 30 by 132. Now I can flip through those changes, and I will see all of those elements highlighted, so I can see which elements precisely are going to change. I'm going to close this dialog, and I'm going to say Finish Download, because I accept those changes. Keep in mind, if you don't want to apply those changes, you can now cancel. Now I want to apply those, and I'm going to say Finish Download, and Konstru is now going to apply those changes to the elements. What is important to know is that we're not deleting any elements. This is the mapping dialog that comes up. We walked through this earlier, so you see here all the mappings for walls and floors, also profile sections and column sections. I can just agree on this because those are the same ones I uploaded. I'm going to click OK. So in a case that if you're downloading those changes, we're not replacing elements. This is very important to know. So we're not deleting any of those elements. What you see here is we downloaded this change, and we have a column here. And this is now in a different profile section. It's much larger than before. And this is, we didn't replace this element. We updated the existing element. We did not delete anything here. We just updated it. One thing that is a bit of a limitation in Revit is that if we update floor profiles, if you change the geometry of a floor profile, this will be replaced because we cannot do that through the Revit API. But all of this information about how we treat each element and what is tricky or difficult with each element, you can find that in our documentation. If I go back online, what you can see here, there's in our menu bar, there's always a documentation button. And there are tutorials and supported elements. Supported elements will show you all the elements that we support. So here you see all the platforms, and then you also see all the elements, and they're explained here in more detail. But if you go to documentation and to tutorials, you will find all the tutorials on special elements, or how to handle sloped floors, or how to repair a model, what we just saw. You will find all of this here documented, so you can always read about it and learn more about how Konstru works and how you can make your transactions better. So, but this way we just translated this model back into Revit. And we had a successful transfer throughout the whole process, and you learned how to upload, to download, to filter, which is very important, and also to repair. The next step is going to be merging 2 models, and Jonathan is going to demonstrate to you how to merge 2 models.
Interesting. I need to check if I actually have the right models.
Okay, if not, I can switch. Yeah.
It's in the webinar account, right?
Yes, it's this one. It's right. The architects and the engineers model.
Okay. Because I already have a history. Well, that's fine. Yeah, it should be fine. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't practice this, but I'm sure it will work with the models that I have. So, okay. So we saw one workflow. Let me actually go back to the PowerPoint real quick. So we saw one workflow where we worked with a single model container, and we pushed and pulled updates, into Revit and into Etabs from that single container. But we also often find that people work in, not that closely together, basically. So especially if you have an architect and an engineer, for example, collaborating, or even if you just have a modeler and a structural engineer, for example, collaborating, they may not always want to entirely trust the other person to upload all the right information and apply all the right filters. And so, so the alternative workflow that we came up with is the ability to essentially that every person kind of uploads and manages their own model container. And then we have a way of comparing two models and then also transferring information back and forth between them. And that's what we're going to show now. And I think this is really helpful. You know, if you just want to see, hey, I'm getting the latest architectural model this week, what has changed between this week, or what is different between the architect's model and my current model? What is different between the fabrication model and the production model? So you can essentially compare two models that have never been synchronized before. And the next step then, even you can take certain information from one model, certain information from the other model, and you can combine them together. So, so we're going to show that now as well. Okay, so here we have what we call the engineer's model, and then I also have the architect's model in my account. Hello? Okay, sometimes you just have to refresh. I think my connection is getting slow. Yeah.
You have, okay, if not, I could show it.
Yeah, maybe something is getting slow here. Yes, I think my internet is okay. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. So, okay, there's the engineer's model. Yeah, this one is just not working. And then I'm going to open a new tab, and I can show you also the architect's model. Architect's model is here. So there are, you know, there are two models that look more or less the same from here. But what I can do right now is I can click the Merge tab, and I can bring across information. Should we go from architect to engineer? What do you think? Or the other way around?
Yeah, I think from engineer to architect is better.
Okay. So essentially, I can click the Merge tab, and I can say I want to go from one model, and I want to go into the other. So right now, of course, it's telling me you can't do that. They're the same model. So I'm going to say I want to go from the engineer to the architect's model. And it's telling me now all the changes that have happened. And you can also see that there are some additions apparently. So now we can basically overlay two models here. And anything that's orange, so when it does this comparison between two different models that have never been synchronized before and that do not share any IDs, what it does is it compares them by geometry. And anything that we see in orange, it has found a matching element in the other model. And it's telling us, oh, we're just updating that element. Even anything that's gray, it probably also found a matching element, but there haven't been any changes. So if I wanted to see, okay, actually what is happening if I were to just go right now, like what would happen to this column, it would tell me the geometry has been modified very slightly. The endpoint was actually moved by 1 millimeter. Okay, so the other thing you can see here, the two braces. So the engineer's model is the one that has been repaired. The architect's model is the one that does not have clean geometry. So maybe we can see it better here. And so we can actually see that the geometry kind of slightly differs. And so if I, for example, if I did not want to bring across geometric updates, I could filter that out. So I could say, okay, make updates to my model, but do not bring across geometry changes. And then it's going to recalculate, and you see already a lot less items are being colored. The other thing, though, that's still annoying is it's still going to import new braces that are very close to the ones that I have. And that's just because my comparison settings between these two models are default to 150 millimeters. If I make this a bit bigger, probably around 300 should be enough. What it's now doing is kind of widening its search radius. And now it's telling me that these elements actually update. And again, let me click on it and find out what is different, because I know that the geometry changes should not be caught, and they aren't, but it's also telling me that the profiles have changed and the material has changed. Okay, that's great. So there are some new profiles and some new materials coming in. There are even some new elements coming in that I didn't have because the engineer's model has been manipulated already to add another level and add an extension here. Okay, so if that's all we want, I'm happy. But if I, for example, only wanted to bring in only new elements, I could do that as well. So I could say, do not update anything that I already have in my model, but do add new elements. I could simply uncheck this box, and it's only going to bring in everything that I don't have in my model yet, or vice versa. I don't want to bring anything new, but I am very interested in new updates, so I could do that as well. And even more, this is a pretty new feature. This is about 2 weeks old. We can even say, instead of bringing all element types, we could even say we only want to bring in columns, for example. So I could just click on custom selection, and I can edit my types. And I'm just going to deselect everything and just select columns for this demo. So now what it does is it's only going to bring in existing and new columns, for example. So you can, let me just turn this off. So you can very kind of precisely specify what kind of element changes you want to bring in from one model into the other, so that I could now update my architect's model with only the column changes, because I'm not adding anything new. So I'm only updating column changes that are coming from the engineer's model. Or actually, it's the other way around, I think. Yeah, I'm updating the engineer's model. Okay, so if I'm happy with this, now it's telling me 20 elements are being updated. They're all of type column, which is what I expected, because I told it explicitly that I only want to bring across columns. And if I press merge, merge columns, or even merge column updates from engineer's model. Okay, so this is my commit message, and so now I think it's going to render the same model again. So I'm actually going to go back and look at my architect's model here, and there's a new commit that's called merge column updates from engineer's model. And if I visualize it by change, you can see that 20 elements were updated. You can also see that one element was added. And what this is, it only added a new group here, which is called Konstru merge changed. And so basically, under the hood, every time we make a merge between two models, it creates a new group for changed elements and for updated elements. So in this case, there aren't any, sorry, for changed and for added elements. In this case, there aren't any added elements, so it only created one group. And it's going to enter all the elements that were updated into this group, so that if I go back to Revit or any of the applications that have a selection set or a group selection ability, I can very quickly visualize all these elements, because I can just say, show me all the elements in this group, and I can very quickly understand in my Revit model which are the 20 elements that are different now. So yeah, so I think this is
great.
Probably it. The only other thing I wanted to show you was the Visualize tab. Let me just go back to all my models. Okay, so so here's a larger model, and this model we generated in Grasshopper. We assigned all the loads and restraints and all the materials in Grasshopper directly, and then we imported it into SAP. And then in SAP, we ran a structural analysis. And then we exported all the end forces of all the elements back into Konstru. So now if I select one of my elements here, you can see that it has a property called forces, and it has, at the start and the end point, it has a set of 6 different force values. So this is, for now, these are all the different forces that we're exporting. But if you request different ones, we can, of course, implement that. And so now I have this model that contains forces, and the nice thing is I could, for example, bring these now into Excel and modify them a bit, round them to the nearest 100 or something like that, like add some kind of factor, whatever I need to do in Excel, and then I can bring them into Revit and make them show up on the drawing, for example. That's a very common workflow. But what we also have in our 3D viewer is the ability to view our 3D model based on different attributes. So yes, we could, for example, just view it based on the element type, which in this case is kind of boring. They're all just beams and braces and point loads. So you can just kind of see how elements are being colored based on, based on this section here. But you can also say, I want to visualize my elements based on an attribute. And then if I type in force, I can then select, for example, all the, I don't know, shear forces at the start point, for example. So so then it's going to color code the model based on shear forces of these elements at their start points. And yeah, so this is also very new. This is probably 2 weeks old, the ability to visualize the model. So we're adding a few more of those kind of features. So the idea is really that you can, upload data from anywhere in a controlled fashion using filters. Then you can repair models and prepare them for different purposes using the repair. And you can also visualize and understand exactly what is inside of your model, for example, using these different view functions that we have. So I could also, just say, actually, I don't want to see any of the point loads, and I don't want to see any of the braces. Actually, so it's just going to show me all the elements that are tagged as a beam only, for example. So you can very quickly kind of understand what exactly is in your model. And then, yes, you can collaborate. You can have other people understand what has changed. So you can create change reports and send them to people, and they will see sort of the colored change view. So this is, I think this is pretty much it. So we have
yes,
we have 9 minutes left.
Yeah, and
so
we
we'll
already have some questions.
Yeah, we'll open it up to questions. So please feel free to use the questions feature in GoToMeeting, and we'll start answering the first questions that we have received so far. So do you want to go?
Yeah, we have a first question coming in here. Can load cases be visualized? Since load cases are a very abstract element because they're not really an element that is existing in your model as a physical object, we don't visualize them, but you saw them in the tab. So you see them by names, and you can actually select them even from the sidebar where you can select all the elements that have been added, but there's no physical element representing them. What we do represent are point loads, line loads, area loads, and all of that. So, and then we have another question. Can you map custom families, or do you need to use Revit standard library? We have the ability in Revit, you can actually select, first of all, the Revit library folder where it picks your families from, but Konstru also creates families by itself. So if you're importing a section size that is not standard and that has a profile shape that is just like something arbitrary that you created yourself, it will create a new family for columns or beams or braces automatically. Also in the Revit settings, you will also see a bunch of settings. I will just show that quickly on my screen. In Revit, if you're going to Revit, there's a settings button, and in here there's the library that we're looking for, and then these are the default family templates that we are using to create new beams and columns on the fly. So you can change them if you want to use any other template. And it's also coming with those templates. So if you install Konstru, we already ship it with templates. And then we have another question. Would new members be added if geometry is not selected? I guess you mean in the filters. So I think this question is referring to if you uncheck the geometry option in filters, this actually means that a new element will always still come in. A new element will always come in, except if you ignore the element type, then it won't come in. But if you uncheck just geometry or attribute or name or something, this applies to changes, not to entirely new elements. Yeah. Then we have some more questions. This is a very powerful program, and a lot of information is being presented. Yes, that's true. Is there a PDF-free version available that explains all these concepts? Well, in our documentation, you will find all those contacts. So the simplest way to do this is to go online to create an account and go to documentation and then explore all the tutorials and getting started documentation, because here it will explain all this to you in detail, all those kind of features we have. But it's a good point. We should actually have a PDF or something that just gives you an overview about what we're doing here. And then we have another question during repair. Can you snap to something other than work points? It is typical to have walls and beams not aligned on grid lines. Yes, we are improving this tool constantly, and also based on your feedback. What we say almost in every webinar, but it's like it is, we're not Autodesk. We're not taking 2 years to implement something. If you come up with a suggestion or improvement, we usually do this quite fast. And we already had this request from some users that said, can we actually also just import our own work points? Well, this is one way to do it, to import your own work points, but the other thing is also in the repair tab, we saw that there are more than that as repair options. I can just refer to the documentation, maybe easiest, and in the documentation we have our different repair modes documented. Here you will find repair modes like pull to closest frame. This is one of the repair modes that snaps 2 elements or like beams here to the next, to the closest member, just like this. Then we also have project frames, which are basically a flatten operation to the closest level. So braces or beams are flattened. And then we have also some other repair methods. If you go through our documentation, you will see all of those. Most importantly, I think, is trim and extend. This actually just allows you, it's like a fillet operation, so it extends the element to the closest member. So this could work, for example, well, on walls. If you want to snap to walls, we don't support walls yet, but this is something we certainly will think of then. Yeah. Then we have more questions. Does auto join work to join Revit elements, or is it only inside in Konstru? We have a join option in Revit, various join options that you saw here, I guess, in the settings here. We have join, unjoin, and keep as they are. So what we do is join means that we're joining all the elements on download. Unjoin means after the download, we're all unjoining everything. And keep as they are is that we actually store the join setting of each element. So we save an attribute that's called join, and it has a status. And this status allows us to identify which end of the element was set to join, and later will be reapplied exactly the same way. Usually there are some issues when using Revit with having the join settings activated, because Revit acts very complicated when it's joining geometry. You might have experienced that also just when modeling. Mostly we recommend even to go to unjoin elements, because this works quite well. Sometimes with very weird geometry setups you might have trouble and get to a point where there are weird joins happening on the Revit side that we cannot control. Then we recommend you to just go to unjoin. And we have another question. Can information be pushed back into Revit, such as updated element sizes, forces, and after analyzing in Etabs? Yes, exactly. This was, Jonathan was showing that. We will show that in another webinar that will show you how to actually run the analysis and then upload analysis results, bring it into Excel, manipulate it, and bring it back into Revit. What we do is we store it in parameters. So if you have an element in Revit, it will just be added as a new shared parameter automatically to an element, and you will find it in here, and there you will find a bunch, in this case the same that we saw online. I don't have that model here yet, but the list you saw online with 6 or 7 forces will be added to those as parameters. So you can actually see them, and you can use them for visualizing them in Revit. So you can go to the Revit sheets and you can print a sheet and then add some annotation to it depending on the parameter settings. Yes, and now, so let's see. Are there any more questions coming up? We're already very close to the end of our webinar.
Yeah, so I think I think this is a good point to stop. So maybe you can just point out the help tutorial. I mean, sorry, the videos as well.
We also in our documentation, you will see, if you click the documentation tab, you will see the YouTube channel that you can click here. And the YouTube channel is very helpful because this is one of the resources that we update a lot. And here you see, for example, some of the videos, also webinars will end up here. So you see a webinar, Repair Your BIM Model with Konstru. This was a webinar we just did last time. Also then here we have how to sync data from various BIM models. This is also about merging, also what we saw today. And here you find all the information you need, and you also find specific uploads or the features we also have. So for example, upload from RAM, upload from Tekla, like very specific to each platform. However, you saw the Konstru UI in the end is always looking the same. But we show it to each platform so you can actually, you get a feeling for it and you know how it works from each tool. Yes, but I think that's basically it. If there are no more questions, then now the time is anyway it's 7, or well, here in my time zone it's 7 p.m. And then thank you very much everyone for attending our webinar. Make sure you sign up for more webinars that are about to come. And the next ones are for sure, as we saw today, we're going to talk about uploading forces, and probably we're going to do another one only on Excel stuff because that's also really powerful. And yeah, so just follow us and watch out for all the new webinars we're posting. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night, good day, depending on your time zone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.